talks. We've got a cracking episode, in all fairness. Excitement from AEW last night. But I want to send my love to every father in the whole entire world that is trying their best, that is working their asses off. Happy Father's Day. I've had a lovely Father's Day so far. It's 9:20 in the morning in the UK. My son has become obsessed with wanting to make me cups of coffee. And in our household, we're all up for encouraging life skills. So I got a pretty decent cup of coffee. And he wanted to make me some Rice Krispies as well. So I had some Rice Krispies. I had a little bit of cheeky sugar in there. Didn't do a workout this morning. Taking a little break for today. And I got some beautifully made homemade cards, which my daughter Lydia put a really great reference comment in one of the cards. She said, "You're better than everybody, and you know it." And I do know it, MJF, sort of like linking that concept. And they didn't buy me a present, they bought me a mug. I always get a mug for my Father's Day. I think it's like the classic Father's Day thing, you either get socks or a mug. But what they have bought me is they have pre-ordered the AEW game, which I am super excited about, and I have said to you a fair few times on this stream that myself, my wife, Josh as well, my co-host from Don't Call Me a Diva, we will be streaming this game. We will be talking about this game. We will be loving this game because everything I've seen, it looks awesome. And look, you might get some of the nerds going, look, the graphics card doesn't look great or blah, 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 blah. But it is just exciting that we are getting computer games that are wrestling based, not solely just from WWE. And that's why it's great. And I just want to shout out as well, Retromania, one of my favourite games, I think, currently. Came out a couple of years ago. It's like an arcade, old school 90s computer game. Brilliant game. Just for out, there is other wrestling games. So yeah, that's what I got. So I want to start off this episode with some shout outs to some awesome wrestling dads. And the reason why I wanted to do with that is because this is a wrestling podcast and I want to share with people bits and bobs that I've learned through the social medias, through reading books and watching the products about wrestlers and about fathers and about this kind of concept. And then we will move into talking about last night's AEW, which I'm not going to lie, just come off watching it. I didn't stay up all night and watch it. Josh did, and I thought it was a bit mad doing so. But I thought my kids are going to be up at 6:30. So I'll watch it with them. And it was a cracking episode. But let's go on. So my highlighted wrestlers for this week. My highlighted wrestlers this week are two guys. We'll go from one by one. But first guy, you will probably know him for his time period in 06 to 10 in Deep South and FCW, and then he was a member of Nexus. He had great feuds with Zack Ryder, Matt Cardona. He was in the Outcasts. He was an amazing tag team with one of my favourite ECW legends, Rhino, and currently he has been working with Rhino in Impact Wrestling. He has been a two-time WWE Tag Champ. Oh no, actually I got it wrong there. 4-time WWE Tag Champ, and he has been a 1-time Impact Champ. And he had an amazing promo this week on Impact Wrestling. Oh baby, yes I am talking about aka Heath Slater, aka Heath, aka Heath Miller. Alright, and I loved him from word go. His stuff in Nexus, great stuff. I particularly fell in love with him. And he particularly fell in love, I think, with wrestling fans a good 6 years into his career, I think. Might be more than that, actually, 2010. Might be 8-9 years. It was a good time period later. People actually generally fell in love with him. And he had this absolutely incredible gimmick, which I think I can get as a dad, a working dad. And I think a lot of other dads can get it as well. And the gimmick was, I got kids. I got kids. This gimmick got Heath so over in pro wrestling. All right, he is a genuine dad. I mean, and stuff like that. And the thing about it is, the stories you hear about this specific gimmick, all right, it was an accidental gimmick. I heard on Chris Van V and a few other things that I've read that basically Heath Slater got tongue-tied, okay, and he basically blurted out something along the lines of, I've got kids, in front of Paul Heyman and Brock Lesnar. And this is where his career hit off in professional wrestling. It's absolutely mental in a lot of ways, because a lot of people say, well, it was great in Nexus, he was great here, he did this, this and this. But this gimmick, I got kids, okay, grew his popularity from, say, 25% to 75%. And he became genuinely one of my favourite wrestlers in a WWE product that I struggled watching. And I will go on about this and on about this and on about this. I sort of tuned out of WWE. In the early 2000s, I became like a insane Impact TNA guy, Ring of Honor guy. And I would very rarely go back into watching WWE. But the few times that I did go into watching WWE, it tended to be for guys like CM Punk. 2015, particularly with John Cena's US title, 2-month sort of thing he did, and Heath Slater, or Heath Miller, or Heath, or whatever you want to call him. And yeah, he is a legit cool dad. I mean, I didn't love because I felt sorry for him because he was in tears and stuff like that. But when he got released from WWE and he did that promo where he talked about his family and stuff like that, thought it was beautiful. And he generally loves his daughters more than anything in the world. And that is why I wanted to talk about this particular Father's Day. I wanted to talk about him. I wanted to talk about him in that concept of being a great father. So look, Heath, if you ever see this, happy Father's Day, boss. Okay, your gimmick I got, because you know what, it is relatable. Because every dollar I make in this house, okay, it is fundamentally for my family. It's for my children. Okay, and I got kids too, man. I got 4 of them. They're all pains in the butt, but I love them, and I do everything for them. Now, my second dad for this Father's Day comes from a different sort of concept. You may know him from biting arses. You may know him as the bastard son of Vince Bloody McMahon. You may know him as the last true cruiserweight champion. I'm talking about Hornswoggle. I'm talking about Dylan Pascal. I'm talking about Swoggle. And I wanted to give him a shout out because his book is probably my favourite wrestling book, where he talks about his life, where he talks about going through the wrestling scene, being a small person wrestler. But do you know what particularly makes me love him? Is his YouTube channel. When he unboxes with his son Landon. When him and his son Landon has a good little bit of banter. And I really enjoy Landon going on things like Ethan Page's Toy Hands. And I love how he particularly gets the frog splash in, I think it's ASW, the Wisconsin sort of like promotion Dylan owns. And he's very, very much involved with Landon. And that is what makes a father special. When a father is involved with his kids and he loves his kids, and when the kids pick up on his passions. I can use it for an example for myself. Look, man, I'm a wrestling fan. Been a wrestling fan since a wee lad, and it is where my heart is every single day I wake up. I mean, I'm looking around my room now. I've got Bendhams, I've got flipping Hasbro's right there. I've got my Bendhams there. I've got my Galoobs there. I've got my Mattels there. I've got my Jazzware figures there. I've got my Micro Brawlers there. And you know what I mean? Wrestling is very much a part of me, but it's a part of my family as well. Wrestling merch as well, crazy on it. But it's a part of everything I do. And I'm just a fan. Okay, and my kids picked up on that. My son John, obsessed with AEW, doesn't like WWE at all. He's obsessed with AEW. Okay, and Impact Wrestling, loves Impact Wrestling. My two favourite shows probably, along with Ring of Honor. And my daughters, they're crazy obsessed with WWE. My wife didn't become a wrestling fan till getting with me. So this is the thing, when it lives your family, and that's what you can see very passionately what Swoggle's son Landon does. And Swoggle loves it, and it's a big, big thing for him. This week on Dylan's podcast, which was an emotional podcast, it was talking about his release from WWE. He specifically chats about this moment, and again I'm going to mention Heath here, where he talks about him getting a dark match in his home sort of like area, and he's wrestling Heath, and Heath goes, "I'm going to put you over, oh baby, I'm going to put you over." Okay, and Dylan's like, "Yeah, brilliant stuff." And Dolph, just before the match, was trying to get Landon in the ring and stuff like that. And Dolph set it up where, towards the end of the match, Landon would jump over, okay, get in the ring with his father, embrace him and love him and passionate. And he basically, Dylan said, that was one of the greatest wrestling moments of his life. And that's what makes a great father. At the end of it, that's what makes a great father, where a father takes a moment and pushes himself and remembers it, and he's doing it for his kids. And this is why Heath Slater, okay, and Hornswoggle, Swoggle, Dylan, Pascal, they're my two fathers of Father's Day. Alright, I could have mentioned Mike Bennett, great father. I could have mentioned Dusty Rhodes, great father. I could have mentioned Ethan Page, great father. Brian Myers, another absolutely great father. Alright, there is absolutely loads of them, but these my two of Father's Day. So my shout outs for today is Heath Slater and Swoggle, great fathers, great examples as human beings. I mean, no one's perfect, but they are great examples as me as being a father. Okay, so listen man, happy Father's Day. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. Love yous all. Keep fighting the good fight. Now man, this is where it gets fun. This is where it gets fun. Alright, as everybody knows, I am all in, man. I'm going to Wembley. I'm going to London. I'm going to go and see the biggest wrestling event in this country since 1992. My wife got that for my birthday, and I am so excited. So excited. As I said a minute ago, we live wrestling in my house. And it's a passion, and I love AEW with a crazy passion. I've literally watched every single episode of AEW. I've watched every single Dark Elevation. I've tried to do my best to listen to every single AEW Unrestricted. I live this product, and I live this product because you don't often in your life get to be there at the start. And that's what I've been at with AEW. I've been there at the start. So if a show's pants, I'm still going to watch it. If it is not the best show in the world, I'm still going to watch it. Okay? And I'm going to be there. I'm going to love it. I am going to do my best to sort of like watch everything to do with this product. And I am all in. I'm going to Wembley, man. I'm going to be one of them 70,000+ people. And I'm so excited. And this new show, AEW Collusion, whatever way you want to say it. I don't know how you specifically say it, but Collision, I'm buzzed for, mate. I'm so buzzed for. I can't control myself how excited I was to watch this. As I said, I wasn't going to stay up all night and watch it. I was going to wake up first thing in the morning and watch it and enjoy it and have a great passion for it. And how to start the bloody show. Theme tunes are everything for me. I always say one of the greatest theme tunes in pro wrestling, okay, was Into the Fire and NWA, because it got you wanting to watch the show. And AEW did the right thing. I don't know if they got the rights for it or anything like that, or how it works or whatever. But Saturday Night is all right. Okay, Elton John, mate. What a banging tune. What a bloody banging tune, and what a tune to listen to. Oh my goodness. It is how you open a show. And you know what I mean? They did the right thing as well. They got some great commentary. They got Kevin Kelly and my boy Nigel McGuinness. I love Nigel McGuinness, British wrestler. If you know anything about wrestling, he is a former Ring of Honor champion of everything. He also does the Ring of Honor show on the Honor app, which I always say to people, get that app. It's well worth getting, well exciting, has really good shows on, has matches from all over the years. And as a commentary team, I'm going to start with this first of all. As a commentary team, they did awesome. They did absolutely awesome. I think they held the show together. Where I love Excalibur, Tony Schiavone, Jim Ross. Jim Ross does join them later on in the show. I think these two work slightly better together. I think Nigel McGuinness has this great sort of like heel commentator concept. And he did it in NXT really, really well and stuff like that. Everybody says about heel commentators, who's the best in wrestling, and so blah, 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 blah. And a lot of people love Corey Graves, and I like Corey Graves. Does an alright job when my kids are watching it. I'm watching it with them, but I think Nigel McGuinness is by miles the best, and I think he works the show incredibly. Kevin Kelly did a great job as well. I'm not going to deny that. Did a great job. Both legends in commentating. But you know what, man? The most controversial guy, I think, in pro wrestling, via people that you probably can't mention anymore, CM Punk opened that show up, mate. CM Punk opened up that show. Now, we all know the controversy of the Bucks, Punk, Kenny Omega, Steel, and so I don't need to go over it, and there's no need to go over it as well, because the past is the past, this is the future, and I think that sort of like cut a line into it last night, and highly enjoyable. Now, Punk, I think when Punk came to AEW, he came with a kind of hero mentality. He was missed by the thousands. I'm not going to lie, I was one of them guys that criticised him for leaving wrestling, because he was the best thing, along with probably Cena, probably, again, people like Slater, people in WWE that was offering you something incredible, was offering you something different each week, was offering you good storylines, good promos, stuff like that. At that particular time, WWE, because I think WWE from 2010 to 2015, 16 was awful when it comes down to it. Similar to Impact Wrestling wasn't great at the time either, and I'm an Impact mark. And Punk disappeared off the face of the planet. He wrote some good comic books. His Drax comic book, Guardians of the Galaxy Drax comic book, absolutely incredible. I'm a fan of it. I love comic books. I'm a mark for comic books. He went to UFC and didn't do particularly great, but he did something. That was thing. So people were tuning into UFC to watch him. What else did he do? He was in that's quite recently, but he's been in Heels, the TV show, wrestling TV show. It's great. He made movie appearances. He became a commentator, and he's a good commentator actually for sort of like MMA. And him coming back this time round had a different kind of feel to it, because you got to remember, when it comes to AEW is a very split show. So now you have the CM Punk fans, and you also have the New Japan Pro Wrestling Elite fans. And the Elite, if you don't know, are Hangman Page, the Young Bucks, Matt and Nick, and Kenny Omega. And people would put Kenny Omega as one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. And do you know what? At the end of the day, you can't deny that. You can't deny that he is one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. And a lot of people are dead split down the middle. And the thing that's interesting in a minute, we've got CM Punk and FTR sort of like become very close. Cash Wheeler and Dax Harwood, great wrestlers, probably the best tag team in history when it comes down to it. So there's a major split. So this show was going to always be interesting. There was always going to be some sort of like funny quotations. And I think Punk's opening promo was great. Punk does this great thing where he's honestly awkward, and you have to respect that. He has a great quote, doesn't he, somewhere along the lines of, I pride myself in being honest. I pride myself in being a jerk because I'm honest all the time. And that's what that promo felt. And yeah, he got a hero's welcome. I've got that. Sorry, I'm just going to look at my notes because I actually wrote down some of the sort of like quotes he said, and I thought that were really, really good. I think he makes a very interesting quote, and it's a very direct quote to the Young Bucks, where he says, "Somebody once called me One Bill Phil, but at least I'm not a counterfeit buck." And he also talks about, why would I change? He goes, you call me CM Junk. There's signs CM Junk, and then Pepsi Phil, and Punk, you're my hero. You boo me, you love me, but you know I can do it. And it was that kind of attitude towards it, and I thought that was brilliant. I thought Punk was absolutely brilliant. And I think he kind of rounded it off where he said this quotation: "I am sorry that the only people more soft than you guys are the wrestlers you like," directed at the Punks and Kenny Omega. I mean, I'm not going to go into that, but I get where he's coming from. We live in a society currently, I'm not going to go into sort of philosophy, we live in a society where people get offended and they can't take hard truths. And Punk's the guy where he gives hard truths and the Elite could not cope with it. That's the kind of storyline we're going with this. And he comes out with two sort of like ropes, boots around his neck, and he also has a bag with the title in. He says basically he gave up the title, so you lot have to either pin me or submit me for me to stop carrying this bag around, which is cool. I can go with that because the AEW title currently still has more than one champion in my perspective. I think Punk argumentably is still the champion. As well, I think he had these boots around his neck, and I thought this is a great artistic sort of like illustration, where he said, you guys all thought I was going to put these boots in the middle of the ring, and when you retire from combat sports, MMA, boxing, wrestling, you either put your gloves in the middle of the ring saying I'm done with it now, or you put your boots. And he goes, I ain't putting these boots down. And I love that because that builds the show up even more. And I'm going to be really honest, before we jump into this, is I'm not going to be covering the women's wrestling match, the Outcast match versus Willow and Sky. And the reason why is because I cover that on another podcast called Don't Call Me a Diva with Josh. You can see that on our YouTube channel, which this will follow up soon on. Wardlow versus Luchasaurus, man. Let's jump into that. I thought it's interesting. I got into a Twitter debate this week where I said that TNT belt needs to be defended on TNT, and I would have given it to Punk. I've said this before. Again, I would have given it to Punk, and the reason why I would have given it to Punk because I think it would be a great concept to have an open challenge. Now, this is where it got fun. Wardlow versus Luchasaurus. Luchasaurus is under a spell currently by Christian Cage, and I mean Christian Cage wears the rolled up neck. He has them sort of like horribly, really ridiculously tight skinny jeans on. He looks like he is some sort of like evil guy with a cat in a corner in a James Bond movie. And he has his control over Luchasaurus. Luchasaurus has gone from green to being black. Alright. And this TNT title match was the best thing that could happen to the TNT title. I love Wardlow. I think Wardlow's got this ability to be big, to be great, but he is got a lot to learn, I think, in the wrestling industry. Working with Arn Anderson was clever. Arn wasn't here this week, which is a kind of a disappointment in a lot of ways, but it was a good match. It was a hard-hitting, powerful match, and fundamentally, it was a cheat-to-win match. Basically, Christian Cage cheated. Luchasaurus got the 1, 2, 3, and brilliant stuff. But what was interesting afterwards? Was this. There was a few bits and bobs that maybe I'm looking into a bit much, but some psychological elements to it. So what happened was Christian Cage got in the ring, got the belt, stood up, held the belt up. He thinks this title's actually his, not Luchasaurus's. That's kind of his concept. But then there was another element where Christian Cage demanded Luchasaurus to go over to him and said, stand there, and he got on Luchasaurus' shoulders. So I'm thinking, are we going to be seeing a long-term Jungle Boy storyline? Because Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus used to do that. So that's kind of where I'm going with it. But this title is important for Saturday night. This title is a very important title for Saturday night, and I think if it is used correctly, it is going to be the best belt in AEW. Now, that's my viewpoint on it. It's maybe a controversial viewpoint, but that's my viewpoint on it. I think it is a belt that could grow the promotion a lot more. I always say to people, TV titles, mid-card titles, internet titles, whatever you want to call them, are the best. I mean, look at, for example, back in the day when you had Tully and you had Arn TV championships, you had Stone Cold holding that NWA TV championships. And yeah, maybe early in Stone Cold's career, but not on Arn and Tully's career. Big people used to go for them mid-titles and used to change the ball game. Great, look at the Intercontinental Championship. Do you know what I'm saying? Honky Tonk Man, absolute legend, held the title for ages. Look at Gunther currently in WWE, holding that title, murdering it. If the TNT title's done correctly, it's going to be great. It's going to be great. But let's move on, man. Let's move on, because the interesting thing about this next match, I know my mate Josh was so excited about this match. Andrade versus Buddy Matthews. He's a massive Andrade fan, and to be fair, I'm a massive Andrade fan. And do you know what? He came back looking gorgeous. Everything he did, he looked gorgeous in the match. I mean, I think it was a great start. I think there's little bits and bobs of that match I particularly liked. I liked when Hart touched the belt. Julia Hart, massive Julia Hart fan, absolutely class. Me and Josh talk about her quite a lot on our podcast. So go look at Don't Call Me a Diva, great podcast, and we talk about her quite a lot. She touched the mask. It's sort of like Andrade got distracted for a second, but we saw some sort of like crazy cartwheel into flip sort of business that was absolutely incredible. And the match ended with a figure eight submission where Andrade won it. But there was like loads of good little story bits in this match, I think, more than anything else. Both of them have had injuries. Both of them were suffering. The doctors got into the ring, looked at the bits and bobs like that. We saw the House of Black at the end beat the living crap out of Andrade after him winning with the figure eight. Top class match. Very, very good match, actually. And it's one of them things is this episode of AEW is bringing back the big guns, man. Bringing back the big guns, and this was the rightful thing to do, I think, from Tony Khan. That we have the AEW Dynamite show, and Dynamite is very, very much for what I would say the original talent, and then this show can be for I'm gonna say it's going to sound a bit arsey, maybe a bit more top talenty sort of like elements, and we saw that very much because following that the Buddy Matthews Andrade match, we had Miro versus Tony Nese. And Tony Nese, I love Tony Nese, man. For me, Tony Nese is in that sort of like element of people like Roderick Strong, Fish, O'Reilly, stuff like that. Comes from a time period where they're technically great mat wrestlers. And Nese has something a little bit more than the others in my perspective. Is he has a mad ass crazy personality. He is funny, and what was funny about this, he wanted the whole crowd to work out with him, and it wasn't going to happen. And then Miro's music drops, bang, 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 bang. Rusev, Miro, whatever you want to call him, comes in the ring, and I love Kevin Kelly's opening quotation about this. Was smart Mark Sterling intelligent in signing on this match? Because it was an open match, anybody could go for it. Nese wanted it. And it was so funny because Nese is basically pommeled all the way through it. He gets a few decent hits. And it's ended by Miro getting the camel clutch, man. It's a good match. It is a good match. And you honestly want to see... It wasn't a squash match. I'm not even going to call it a squash match because it wasn't a squash match. Fundamentally, what it was a match that was bringing Miro back in. And same was the Andrade match. The Andrade match was a bit more sort of like bang, 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 a lot more hits, a lot more pushing forward. But the Miro match was to bring him in. You've got to remember, Miro had that TNT belt, and he did well with that belt. I think they could have done far more with him. But it's a learning process. AEW's young, as I always say. Now, I said I'm not going to jump in with the Outcast match or anything like that, or any of the particular segments. What I wanted to jump into at this specific point, let me just Yeah, it is the finale match, man. Is the finale match. And I think the finale match was probably the match that we were all really tuning in to watching this AEW show for. And the reason for it is Samoa Joe, Juice Robinson, Jay White. So, Samoa Joe, man. I'm a TNA mark. I am a Ring of Honor mark, and that man's a legend. An absolute fluking legend. He's also the TV championship of Ring of Honor. Joe has a lot of ability in the sense of he hits hard and he's a legit hard nut, mate. He's a legit hard nut, and I am so thankful for AEW Ring of Honor and bringing him back and into the fold after his time period in WWE. Juice Robinson and White, man, are they calling themselves the Golden Bullet Club? I might be wrong there. They might be calling themselves the Golden Bullet Club. I'm not sure, but they come from a Japanese background. Juice Robinson's actually, I believe, married to Tony Storm, which is the AEW Championship. Jay White is the leader or the former leader of the Bullet Club. I'm not. This bit confuses me. Look, man, if you know this information, get in contact with me. Say that I'm wrong or right. I'm not that bothered. And them two were particularly awesome, actually, in New Japan. I mean, I love Juice Robinson. I loved him when he was Finn Juice, when he was with Finley's son. Versus FTR versus Punk. Now, great thing about FTR. FTR are Punk guys. They're Bret Hart guys. They are guys that kind of have this insane respect for the business, which I don't think many modern wrestlers have, in the element of they respect the old school, they respect the Rockers, they respect Rock and Roll Express, they expect flipping the Brainbusters, Horsemen. They respect all of them elements, and they have this ability to be able to show that in their wrestling. So they've got this whole kind of beautiful retro throwback style. I mean, both Dax and Cash are very different wrestlers, very, very different wrestlers. You can see where Dax is very much hard-hitting, powerful, push forward, hard man of the group sort of like thing. And then Cash is fast, eloquent, pretty how he wrestles. And they are such a great team. They were a great team in the revival in NXT Gold time period. And so important, so important to the AEW brand. They're the current AEW tag champions. They had this great year last year as well, just on this note, fighting literally everybody. Their matches with the Briscoes, Mark and Jay, were particularly high quality matches. And then you got CM Punk, man. I mean, you don't have to say much about CM Punk. CM Punk's probably one of the most universally known wrestlers in the business. There is no debate, no argument with that. You can try to argue with me, but it's going to be wrong, because he is that big. Love him, hate him, his name's still on every one of our wrestling fans' tongues. And this is the match of the night. Look, I've made loads of notes in this. I'm not sure if I'm going to go note to note, word to word, but I'm going to talk you through the sort of like the highlights of it, the bits and bobs I liked of the match. I mean, it starts fast. It's Jay and Dax goes into the ring, and you see Dax going straight for them chops. Dax is wanting an early pin. You can see how he's wrestling in this psychology. He's going for the early pin. He goes and pushes for a sharpshooter. White does that typical heel movement where he rolls out the ring, and then he rolls back in and tags Juice. Now, Juice Robinson is a bit of a different game, how he works. He is a hard-hitting wrestler. I always say Jay White's more quick. He does sort of like really fast snaps, sort of suplexes and stuff like that. Juice is a bit more hard-hitting. And at this point, Wheeler's in the ring. And Wheeler's a big, strong boy, man. And that's what he offers here. He offers a lot of carrying. He picks up Juice like this, lobs him on the floor. Absolutely fantastic. And the moment every single fan in the whole entire of Chicago was waiting for, Punk's in. Punk is in, and he goes in quick. Goes for a pin, misses the pin. It's a 2 count or something along the lines of that. And Joe versus Punk, and this is the match we want. So if you're a Ring of Honor fan, you'll know this. Punk and Joe, I think it was 2004, 2005, 2006, something along that. Might have been 2004 actually, and for Process. Okay, had this great trilogy set of matches, and this is kind of what we were all feeling. There was going to be that kind of element of Punk versus Joe very much in the match. And what we got to remember, there is a major size difference between Punk. Punk's about my size, okay? Joe is humongous in girth, and he's probably a little bit taller as well, a little bit cheeky taller, and he also chops like some sort of mofo-in beast, and we saw that very much. And every time you see Joe chop in this match, if it's against Dax, a Wheeler, if it's against Punk, it hurts, man. It bloody hurts. And that was another great moment in this match. And Punk ended up taking control of the match. We saw a great tag from Dax. Dax comes in and he does a chop fest and fook me. Dax thinks he's a big boy, thinks he's a gangster. He goes up against Samoa Joe, the man that I personally think he probably, along with Gunther, has the hardest chops in the business currently. Okay, in the business currently. And you know what? Dax takes him. This is what I was saying about Dax. Dax is that hard man classic sort of like wrestler, and he takes him like a big man. He's like, yeah, I want more. And towards the end of that scene, we see who overtakes. Jones ups gets it. Joe gets a big lariat, takes it down. But yeah, man, Dax is a legit hard man. We see Wheeler come in. We see Wheeler doing some fast-ass moves. He is fast as hell, and I think that's what's got to be remembered about this tag team. Totally different wrestlers. So fast. And we see Punk come in again. We see some fast tags from both the teams at this point. We see sort of like Wheeler come in. We see Dax come in. We see sort of Cash come in. And then we see the other way around. And Juice, Jay White, and that take control of the match. And they are moving everybody to the corner. And that's good tag team wrestling. So what the whole point of tag team wrestling is to cut half the ring in half. All right. And that's what Juice and White and Samoa Joe did for long periods in the match. And we see a little bit later on, we see a great reversal where Cash goes and gets the tag. And as I said, I'm not doing a play for play. I'm doing bits and bobs that I really, really enjoyed about this. And at last, we wait after quite a while. We see Punk get back in the ring. And we see, I believe, I'm trying to remember from memory now, actually. I believe Punk attempts at this point go to sleep. That sort of like finger he swings down, boom, on the knee, all right, on White, and it doesn't work. And a few moments later, I might be getting this in the wrong order, so I do apologise. We see Joe take over, and we think Joe is going to get the sleeper, man. We see Joe's going to go and get the sleeper, and we see FTR getting held back by Juice and White, and it's one of them moments where you're actually pooping yourself a little bit. You're thinking that Tony Khan, have you done it, mate? Have you done it? Have you changed your mind? Are you going to give Samoa Joe this win? All right, but he doesn't quite get it. What we see at this point is we see Cash get out of White, out of Juice Robinson's grip, runs over, takes down White, and then what happens at that point is then we see Cash break up this movement, and at this point we move into another sort of segment movement of what's going on, where we see the big superplex off the top rope by FTR. We see a splash by Cash, and then we see Punk do a major sized elbow. And what happens at this point, it goes down to a 1, 2, 3, doesn't actually happen. Punk versus Joe happens again. Then there's a major brawl. Everybody gets into the ring. I've got that the wrong way around, just to add. And that sleeper movement happens just after that. And then basically towards the end of the fight, Juice gets the sort of like gets the big sleep, and it's a great fight. It's a sort of 20-25 minute fight. It is, I would put it up there being the best match of the whole entire night, and I think that was the point of it. The whole entire night, that match needed to be that good, and it was that good, and it was that exciting, and it was worth every moment of the 1.5 hours you kind of waited to get to that. And I think I always worry with AEW if they give too much and then they run out of steam, because that's what AEW does. It gives too much and runs out of steam sometimes. And the ability of what happened, particularly in this match, I'm hoping it doesn't. I can see CM Punk going against Miro next week, possibly, or going against Andrade, or something along the line to that. And I think if they can keep that going, it's going to be great. because there's plenty of people they can work with. Their roster is humongous, and they've got Ring of Honor roster guys as well they can work with as well. And I think this is the thing. I mean, could we see CM Punk go against Claudio? Could we see CM Punk go against Moxley on this show? Could we see CM Punk go against all these people and then eventually work up to maybe an MJF return where they sort of like they reunite the AEW belts? Who knows? But this episode for me was a solid 5-star episode, and that last match was a solid 5-star match, and it was worth every moment of waiting. And you know what? I'm going to say this honestly. I come across as maybe in this episode as maybe a CM Punk mark. Maybe I'm not a CM Punk mark. I'm happy to criticise when CM Punk's being a prick. I'm happy about that. I'm happy to criticise anybody when they're acting like a noob, man. Standard. But Punk is an attraction, and I just put this on Twitter a few minutes ago that I personally hold the viewpoint. AEW doesn't need CM Punk, but AEW is the biggest attraction. CM Punk is the biggest attraction AEW has. Look, man, and maybe that's a thought process that we need to go through. But yeah, look, man, what's coming up for the next of the week? Because I'm going out for a walk with my family. It's bloody Father's Day, do you know what I'm saying? I've come on here to spread some love, okay? To spread my exciting for pro wrestling. Then I'm off for a nice little trek. And then I'm having a barbecue. But what's coming up in the next week for the Let Me Talk To You network? We have Don't Call Me a Diva coming at some point this week. I'm not 100% sure, okay? But it will be here. There will be a podcast of Don't Call Me a Diva some point in the next week. We'll be chatting about everything to do with women's wrestling, highlight matches, dream sort of like scenarios, and so me and my boy Josh, absolutely great show. Last week, proper buzzed on it. We got like 50, 51, 52 views on it. That's the highest we've got so far. It might not sound much, but it is to us. And then on Fridays, we have the Skullsy Talk show at 10 a.m. in the morning, and that show is going to be more about highlighted wrestlers, so wrestlers from the past and merchandise and wrestling news. And then next Sunday we have the 10 a.m. Skullsy Talks. So we do 2 Skullsy Talks a week, and that is going to be that tends to be about a bit of a review show like today in that element. But as I said, look, man, it's Father's Day. I'm off. I want to say again, check out Heath Slater or a Heath Miller or a Heath, great wrestler. Check out Hornswoggle, man. I mean, do you want to see how much of a mark I am? I've quite a lot of his action figures. I've got the Bendy. If you know me, I'm a massive Bendy collector. I've got his like micro brawler as well. I've got a load of his Jax figures and so blah blah blah. So listen to me. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much for taking 45 minutes of your day to listen to Skullsy. And this will drop on YouTube at some point today. So thank you. Love you lots.